Grab a pint, grab your lineup. We're about to tap into fantasy. Welcome back to Tap Into Fantasy, the podcast with a professional fantasy mind and an amateur beer palate. I'm Lance Gandy. You can find me on X at LG_fantasy. Grab a pint and brace yourself because Thirsty Thursday is here to wash away the fantasy pain. And there's a lot of that this week. Game after game, fantasy football reminds us that hope is a dangerous drug. And this week, I'm checking in on 3 players who've been nothing but disappointment. We'll talk about whether they still have a future in your lineup or if it's time to swipe left. I'll also break down every fantasy angle from the 49ers and Rams, then run through 2 players I like and 2 I don't at every position for the weekend. And to finish it off, I'm reviewing a Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Tart Cherry Wheat, which kind of sounds more like a craft cocktail password than a beer, but we'll see if it's worth the hype. But first, we must appease the fantasy gods. May the best drafts of your past be the worst of your future. Let's tap in. Okay, so like I said, I'll be trying the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Tart Cherry Wheat. I've had some Bourbon Barrel stouts and porters, but never a wheat beer. So this will be a new experience. I don't know. It's been really hit and miss, the ones I've tried. Like, some are just way too heavy with the bourbon taste. Like, I'm a bourbon guy. I love bourbon, but it tastes like they just poured a little bit of a stout in a glass of bourbon sometimes. But actually, number 1 on the big beer board on the website is the Goose Island 2024 Bourbon County brand stout, which was literally the first beer I reviewed on this podcast. It was a god among beers and has stood the test of time, which was a little over 2 months. It will be a bourbon duel for the ages. Now it's time to catch up with the sip-fluencers on Untappd. Nothing says serious critique quite like a 1-star review that just reads, "Tastes weird." Luckily for us, Untappd collects it all, and now, so do I. Welcome to the Scrolls of the Booze Realm. Okay, here's the first review from the deep southeast U.S. Let's see if you can tell. 11 quarts of peaches canned. Cobbler time soon. Nice beer. Slight tart. Fruity but dry. BBL is subtle. Will buy again. So is this the most Kentucky review that ever was? Like, that's not subtle bourbon. That's their bloodstream trying to dilute the moonshine. Like, only in Kentucky is a beer review foreplay for peach cobbler. 11 quarts of peaches canned. Cobbler time soon. Like, you know dang well that cobbler's getting eaten off a paper plate at a family reunion where someone gets arrested. Okay, I'll give you another gem of a review later in the episode that you shouldn't miss. So go ahead and click those like and subscribe buttons so you can stop doom scrolling Reddit for lineup advice from a guy named BeerLover69. So talking about this beer without tasting it is like a hillbilly bragging about his moonshine still. Time to put up or shut up. This is the opening draft, the segment where I cosplay as a professional beer reviewer, even though my qualifications are limited to shotgunning Busch Light in college. If you've got a beer you think deserves its shot at glory, send it my way at tapintofantasy@gmail.com. It might just end up on a future episode and land a spot on the legendary Big Beer board over on the website. So last week I tried the Weihenstephaner Crystal Weiss beer and put it 5th on the Big Beer board with a pour score of Sparkling Banana Fantasy Recovery Beer. It was an awesome beer to drown your sorrows after 3 of your starters go on IR and bye weeks come along. Okay, let's pour this Southern Belle. Today, I have a St. Arnold pub crawl glass I'm pouring into. It's pretty sweet. All right, starting the pour. I've heard it doesn't have much head, and no, like none at all. Like a 4-year-old could have done a nice pour on this one. A little darker than I thought it'd be. It's kind of cherry red amber, I guess I'd say. You can definitely smell the cherry and bourbon. Basically just smells like cherry bourbon beer, which makes sense because that's what it is. All right, let's give this a try. Wow, that is the heaviest wheat beer I've ever had, probably. It's 8%, but I think it goes down a little too easy for that ABV. Like a little syrupy, super heavy on the cherry taste. It's almost a heavy dessert beer, which is weird with like bourbon barrel aged beer. Like the bourbon is definitely there. You can taste it. It has that kind of oaky cherry taste to it. Very different than anything I've ever had. Okay, I'll keep sipping on this silent killer and give you my pour score at the end. All right, let's talk about some players that have underwhelmed, to put it nicely, and how I see it going for the rest of the season. So you can find my full rankings every week on tapintofantasy.com. I have week 5 rankings up in all scoring types, and I update them regularly before kickoff. Okay, it's time for a new segment. This is the Fantasy Graveyard.
Enter the Fantasy Graveyard, where dreams go to die.
So, Trevor Lawrence has been one of the worst investments at QB so far. He's at QB 29 in points per game through the first 4 weeks, while he was drafted around QB 18, depending on the platform. Like, the Trevor top 12 hype is just officially retired. Like, he's never going to be that at this point. He's had too much time to show what he is at this point. He's a toolsy dude who sprays too many balls because he has bad footwork at times. He's had some horrible luck this year with drop passes from his receivers, but he has a horrible completion percentage because he's been spraying balls and he's made some bad decisions also. So Next Gen Stats has something called completion percentage above expectation. The leaders this year are Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, and Daniel Jones at around 7 to 9% completion percentage above expectation. Trevor Lawrence is second from the bottom at negative 8.4%. Like, that's worse than that disaster of an Urban Meyer rookie year in 2021 at negative 5%. Like in 2022 and 23, he was almost exactly average. So I expect him to regress to the mean, at least for the most part, as the season goes on. He's shown that he's better than this, and his receivers have mostly let him down. And he's also still learning a new offense with Liam Cohen. The Liam Cohen offense has looked awesome. He doesn't have the same horses he had with the Bucks, but he's still getting it done in the run game. I like what he's done in the passing game. Trevor's just looked bad for the most part. I'm hoping he kind of fits his scheme more around Trevor for the most part. It doesn't look like Trevor is really comfortable with the heavy play action type things that Cohen does. He seems to be more of a true drop back passer. So I'm hoping they go more that route as the season goes on. One thing he has been elite at is not taking sacks. He's only been sacked 3 times. So it may stay ugly the next 3 weeks against strong defenses, but after his bye, the schedule lightens up a bit, and he should have a better grasp of the offense. Like, I still have him as a top 20 QB the rest of the season. He should be a buy low after his bye week. So since week 1, it's been a really rough time for Derrick Henry owners. He's been the RB 59, 22, and 42 since then, and now they get 2 elite defenses in the Texans and Rams, possibly without Lamar Jackson for both contests. Like, this team is just beat up, and in trailing game scripts, Henry barely plays. He had a 38% snap share against Kansas City when they were trailing for almost all of the game. With Cooper Rush in and many of their best players injured, like, I expect that to keep happening over the next few weeks. They'll probably be 1-5 before their bye in week 7, and that is when you buy low. Like, they should have many of their best players back, including Lamar, and they'll be in scramble mode to start winning. They also get some cake matchups after the bye in Chicago and Miami. Still, you should lower expectations and think of him as kind of a boom bust borderline RB1 going forward. It hurts my heart that my little lad McConkey has been so bad to start this year. I have him in both my home leagues, and so I'm obviously counting on him to get better. Like, there's been multiple things that have contributed to this slow start. He has a 59% catch rate. It was at 73% last year. When he does catch it, he's down 3 yards per reception. And these old school coaches, Harbaugh and Roman, want a big-bodied receiver to win downfield as their number one. Quentin Johnson fits that archetype, so they're going to keep feeding him like one. McConkey also hasn't had a touchdown yet, but there's so many other playmakers on this team that weren't there last year that can just take those away. Like, he should now be viewed as a borderline wide receiver 2 or high-end wide receiver 3 that is better in PPR. If either one of QJ or Keenan Allen get hurt, he gets a huge boost, obviously. Okay, on to some more disappointing things. The game on Thursday, which you would have thought could be a banger before the season, the 49ers and Rams, now has no Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, or Nick Bosa. Let's just do this dumb Thursday night fantasy breakdown.
Thursday night fantasy breakdown. Every week, every player. Let's tap in.
So let's start with the more fun side first, the Los Angeles Rams. Matt Stafford is playing like an old graying man with something to prove. He now has a weapon between the 20s in Puka Nacua and in the red zone in Devontae Adams. So Sean McVay is actually letting him throw some touchdowns. He's all the way up to QB 12 now because they're actually passing it in the red zone. This game could get ugly, though, with all the injuries on the 49ers side, so it could be more of a Kyron Corum put the game away in the second half, but Stafford is in a pretty good spot to dominate in the first half at least. He's a really good play in 2 QB leagues, kind of a mid QB 2. Kyron Williams has actually looked good this year. He's never going to be a home run hitter, but it looks like he just has a little more burst than last year. He's actually at .34 yards over expected per attempt. Last year he was at exactly 0, like the most average dude ever. The difference between this year and last year is they now have a red zone threat in the passing game they like to use, and Blake Corum is taking some snaps, so he's no longer that 80+% snap guy. Like, he's going to live in that mid RB2 range each week with this new usage, which isn't where you draft him, but I mean, it's not a huge loss. It's just kind of what you have to expect going forward. Like, Corum is now one of the best handcuffs in the game. You can't throw him in your lineup yet. It would take a Kyron injury, but he should be rostered in most leagues. Puka is the best receiver in the game right now. He's literally on track to break the season receptions and the yardage record in a season by just absurd amounts. Like, I'm going to go out on a limb and say start him. You just hope they start getting him more involved in the red zone. Like, it's really the only flaw in his game right now. But it is crazy that he's the number 1 receiver in fantasy right now with only 1 touchdown. Devontae, on the other side, is also eating in this offense as he's tied with Amon-Ra St. Brown for the lead league in red zone targets with 10. He only has a 49% catch rate right now, but I think that should stabilize with more time with Stafford. He'll be a bit more boom bust than Puka just because he doesn't get as much volume. He relies on the touchdowns more, but he should get a bunch of them with the usage he's getting. Like, he's a top 12 receiver this week. Start him with confidence. Their tight ends are nothing burgers, so we'll skip them. So now, on to the very sad, mangled, wrecked, crippled, pitiful, broken, defeated 49ers squad. Brock Purdy is one of the many out this game, so it'll be the Mac Jones show. He gets to throw to the likes of Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, and Sky Moore. So he'll be ranked low enough where you probably shouldn't start him in 2 QB leagues. Not the bottom of the toilet bowl like Dylan Gabriel overseas against the Vikings this week, but he's treading the piss right above him in the toilet bowl. So Christian McCaffrey doesn't have the burst he had in his prime. He's at negative 0.99 yards over expected per attempt this year, but he gets so much volume that really none of it matters. Like, he's their crash test dummy, just throwing him all over the place until he's too battered to go anymore. He's had a massive 25 touches per game. Like, he's on pace for 425 touches, 37 more than Saquon had last year. Like, with this workload, he's an every week starter, especially with all these starters out. I mean, until he just breaks down. So who knows what the snap share is going to be like for these retread receivers they're throwing out there. I mean, Kendrick Bourne saw the most last week at 67%, but it was DeMarcus Robinson's first game back from suspension, so he could easily overtake him. Sky Moore looks to be the third receiver, but if you've ever seen Sky Moore try to play in the NFL, you'll know that's a big reach to try and play him. Kendrick Bourne is a desperate flex play this week, but their wide receiver one is basically Christian McCaffrey. George Kittle isn't coming back until at least week 6, so they'll roll out Jake Tonjes and Luke Farrell again. If you're in a deep league, Tonjes could be a decent play, but I mean, anything less than a 14-team league, you can safely ignore him. All right, next we'll introduce a new segment, but first, a quick break. This episode is powered by Dubby Energy. It's my go-to for a clean boost with zero crash and zero jitters, whether I'm grinding out drafts or just need that mid-afternoon push. No junk, no guilt, just focus. Hit the link in the description and use promo code TAPINTOFANTASY for 10% off. Dubby brings the energy. You bring the winning picks. All right, welcome back. Now let's talk about the players I'm hyping up and fading for the Week 5 slate. I'm going to be giving you 2 players that should boom and 2 players that should bust for every position, except one each for tight end, for the Sunday and Monday games. This is love 'em or leave 'em.
It's love 'em or leave 'em, darling. Your fantasy lineup just got a little sexier.
All right, let's kick it off at quarterback. You can't even say Daniel Jones is turning back time with his play because he's literally never been this good in the NFL. Like, he has an awesome supporting cast and a great play caller putting him in advantageous situations. Like, this isn't a mirage. It's just the best situation he's ever had. The Giants didn't even know what they had. I'm looking at you, Giants. He's also a threat at the goal line as he already has 3 rushing touchdowns this year, and he's 8th in total rushing EPA among QBs. Like, check out this image from at XEP_network. Daniel Jones literally leads the league in success rate and is 3rd in completion percentage. I mean, he's just making good decisions, and Shane Steichen is making those decisions easy. They go up against a reeling Raiders squad that is basically a pass funnel. Like, I'm guessing you can't name one person in their secondary. I mean, I don't even think Pete Carroll can either. They are 24th in EPA per pass play and 2nd against the run. Like, this game has a potent 47.5 point over-under, and the Colts projected for 27 points. Like, this could be his statement game. All right, I know Bryce Young has been less than stellar, and by that I mean straight poopy, but hear me out on why he could be a decent start this week. He's only been playable, really, in 1 game so far, but he's played 4 above average to great passing defenses. New England started slow on defense this season, so the numbers don't really bear it out, but they now have Christian Gonzalez to lock down Teteroa McMillan, which is basically what he did last week. T-Mac is the only credible pass catcher Bryce has right now. His other top receivers are Bryson Tremaine, Tommy Trimble, and Mitchell Evans. At least those were the target leaders last week, besides T-Mac. He finally goes up this week against a terrible passing defense and the Dolphins, who have nobody that can shut down T-Mac. Like, they allow the second highest scramble rate in the NFL also, so he could also get a few points on the ground. The Panthers defense is turning into a pumpkin again, so he's going to have to keep throwing all game. It's the get-right game for him, and he should be able to thrive the next 3 games with bottom 5 pass defenses and Jalen Coker hopefully getting healthy. On to the Week 5 QB busts. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield. He's probably my favorite QB to watch right now. He's just not an impressive athlete or impressive in stature compared to NFL defenses, but he just plays with that like FU attitude and trucks people he shouldn't truck. There was one play, you might have seen it. It looked like he was possibly out for the season. It looked like he tore his ACL, but the linebacker or whoever hit him started talking mess, and it's like he magically healed and just rose up from the dead and started to get up in his face. It was so cool. He gets an elite defense in Seattle in this one with no Mike Evans, probably no Bucky Irving, 2 starters on the line still on IR, and Chris Godwin looking very rusty. Yes, he was fine against Philly last week, but Bucky was dominant, and he only got to 19.9 points because of a 77 and a 72-yard pass. Like, they weren't able to sustain drives at all, and now they have to rely on Rachaad White to do a Bucky impression. Like, I expect him to struggle in this one. I would play Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray over him. All right, one more QB bust for the week. Jake Browning. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kicking him while he's down. We need to talk about Jaden Daniels. So his superpower for fantasy are his legs. That's what gives him a high floor to start with. He rushed for 85 yards in the 2 games he started this year. Like, this knee injury could linger for at least a few weeks. He was seen in a knee brace at practice, so expect him to run less. Terry McLaurin is still not practicing. It looks like he's not going to be in this one. Along with Noah Brown and Deebo Samuel actually popped up on the injury report Wednesday and didn't practice. There's a real possibility that Zach Ertz and Luke McCaffrey lead the charge in the receiving corps Sunday, which it goes without saying that that's scary. Even if Terry or Deebo come back, Jaden just didn't look like himself the first 2 weeks. He was QB 13 and 16 in those games and was 23rd and 30th in QBR. Like, now he could run less without his full complement of receivers against a top 2 defense against the pass. I just don't see this going very well. Like, I would start Drake May and Justin Fields over him. All right, let's do some running back booms, starting with Woody Marks. He's seemingly fully supplanted Nick Chubb for the starting job in Houston. He outsnapped him 40-30 last week and just honestly looked really good doing it. In his limited rushing attempts so far, he's at .65 rushing yards over expected, and he came into the league known as a pass-catching back, so he can produce in that area also. The Ravens team is balls against the run and have Cooper Rush going up against this elite Texans D. I expect the Texans to be up early, and they'll be able to run the ball down their throats. Marks and Chubb should have pretty high usage in this one, but Marks now gets the passing down usage to go along with it. Like, he's a really nice RB2 this week. So I am going to give you a deep sleeper with this one. Michael Carter from the Arizona Cardinals. I might be doing this because I have to start him in a few of my leagues, so a little bit of wish casting might be going on here. So let's talk through this. James Conner and Trey Benson are out for a while, It's now Michael Carter and Amari DiMercado splitting backfield duties. DiMercado has been the passing downs back in the past and was that last week with Benson leading the way. I expect him to pretty much have that same role this week, with Michael Carter mostly the early down grinder. These are the same Titans that haven't even sniffed a win and are 7.5-point underdogs in this one. They've given up the most touchdowns to running backs this year and the fourth most points to the position. Arizona will almost assuredly be up in this one, so Carter should get a bulk of the playing time in that game script. If you're already in bye week hell, as I am in 2 of my home leagues, Carter could be a decent flex this week if you're feeling frisky. All right, let's go over some no good, very bad plays at running back. Tony Pollard has the misfortune of being on the worst team in the league, so even with his elite usage, he's only been RB 29 in points per game. This is on 93% of the team's carries and 90% of the team's running back targets. Tyjae Spears is now practicing after being on the IR the first 4 weeks, and that means this elite usage could go down the drain. Spears should get most of the passing game work and make this, at the very least, a 70-30 split. Like, there's just zero ceiling for this run game with the way the offensive line is playing and just the offense in general. Like, they don't score enough points to make him usable with elite usage, so he's basically going to be irrelevant with less. On top of that, they're playing Arizona, who's 6th in the league in EPA per rush on defense. This is a sell low time on Tony Pollard. Like, Spears is probably the back of the future, and they could even start shifting towards playing him more if they keep losing. So Kenneth Walker has been electric at times this year, but the coaching staff seems to love having that split backfield with Zach Charbonnet and him around a 50-50 split. Like, Charbonnet has been pretty awful in most rushing metrics, but he has sniped some touchdowns from Walker, which keeps him from being much higher than a mid RB2 most weeks. Like, Walker has 11 touches in the red zone to Charbonnet's 10. They both go up against a Tampa Bay run defense that hasn't allowed a running back to rush for 44 yards yet. They're number 1 in yards allowed to backs, slowing down Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and Breece Hall, among others. Like, it would just be tough to get away from him in most leagues with the bye weeks incoming, but definitely temper expectations. So if you've liked the show so far, tap that review button harder than you tap your ex's Instagram stories. I will appreciate it much more than she will. All right, it is time to crack open another scroll from the booze realm. Here is a 4-star review. Happy birthday, buddy. That's it. That's the whole review. But it comes with a picture of a little boy with a red ball and the beer in the foreground with 2 glasses. There's no cake, there's no candles, there's no friends. Just Dad's Untappd check-in and a ball from Dollar General. Memories that last a lifetime. Hallmark doesn't make a card for that one. So I dove in further, and in the last 2 weeks, this dude has checked in from Colorado, Illinois, Texas, and Kentucky. Either he's teleporting between breweries or running from the feds, but one thing he's certainly not doing is throwing that kid a birthday party. Okay, let's forge ahead to the receivers I like betting on in Week 5. So I did not love Alec Iomanner as a talent coming into the draft, but he's clearly surpassed Calvin Ridley on the Titans as the go-to receiver in this offense. Ridley looks pretty much ass. He's topped 30 yards once this year and is one of the least efficient receivers in the league right now. He can safely be dropped in shallower leagues. Like, he also left the Week 4 game early with some sort of injury and didn't practice Wednesday, so there's a chance he's either limited or misses this game. So check out this image from PFF. Iomanner is the top-rated rookie receiver over the last 2 weeks. The Titans are probably the worst team in the league right now, so I expect them to be down in this one against the Cardinals, and Arizona is 25th in yards given up to receivers. The Cardinals secondary is beat up at this point, So the Titans should be throwing the ball a ton, and Ward will be looking for Aya Manor. So the next one is a deep sleeper, but if you're stuck with just a disgusting amount of injuries and bye weeks, you could get a sneaky good game out of Darius Slayton this week. Like, Malik Neighbors is gone for good. Bottoms up, everyone. So Wan'Dale Robinson and Slayton are the two full-time receivers on the Giants. The Saints haven't been an embarrassing defense by any means, but they're just a pass funnel. Like, they're 29th in EPA against the pass, 11th against the run. New Orleans is actually favored in this game for the first time all season, so the Giants should be in a more passing game script. The Saints have allowed the second most 40-plus yard receptions on the season and the sixth most touchdowns to receivers. Like, don't sit your studs for him or anything, but he could have a decent target share and hit a deep one in this game. So I am sorry to tell you this, but you're going to have to wait at least another week for A.J. Brown to have a big game. They're up against the Broncos, and I mean, you know Patrick Surtain is going to stick on Brown like glitter on a stripper. The passing offense still looks broken. The running game can't find explosives, and A.J. Brown is posting cryptic Insta stories like a 12-year-old who just got out of a situationship. The vibes are bad, and this is not a get-right game. The Broncos are the third best defense in EPA per play, and they've allowed the least amount of touchdowns to receivers. One. They've allowed one. This should be a really ugly game. Something like, 20-18, with Hurts throwing 2 yards downfield at a time. It's tough to sit him with all the injuries and bye weeks, but I would start Chris Olave over him. Also, Zay Flowers is in a bad spot this week, and probably for the next couple weeks with Lamar Jackson out. Cooper Rush is not Lamar, and the Texans should feast on this offensive line if Ronnie Stanley can't go. This should be a super low-scoring game, while the Ravens do everything they can to hide Rush from having to play hero ball. Like, Isaiah Likely is also back to take some of the target share burden from Flowers, so the pie will be smaller, and Flowers' share will also be smaller. Like, I expect the Ravens to be down in this one with all the injuries they have on both sides of the ball. So I guess there could be a few garbage time receptions for Zay, but there's basically zero ceiling for him in this game. Like, the Texans' defense is 4th in EPA per pass play, 7th in total defense EPA. These are two of the most methodical teams in the league. It's going to be a low-volume, run-heavy game for both teams. Sit Zay if you can. All right, I only do one boom tight end every week because the position is just stupid. So Mason Taylor is starting to show signs of a breakout in Jets land. He's had 6 and 7 targets in the last 2 games and turned the 7 targets into 5 catches for 65 yards. He is the second leading target earner on this team right now, like just by far. It's a really condensed share. So look at this graphic from at Coach Speak Index. It shows some takeaways from Aaron Glenn's press conference before last game. It basically says multiple times they need to get Mason Taylor the ball and that he's a dynamic weapon for them, whether he gets the ball or not. The Jets defense is just an atrocity right now, so Dallas should cut through them like Swiss cheese, but so is the Cowboys D. Like, that means Justin Fields will be dropping back more than normal, and Taylor should be able to take advantage of that. It is red alert time for Mark Andrews. You should sell relatively high if you haven't already. Isaiah Likely came back immediately to a 46% snap share, and although he didn't have a target, that should just keep climbing. Like, this dropped Mark Andrews' snaps off a cliff from around 80% to just 56% in week 4. The offensive line is banged up. Cooper Rush is in. They're going up against an elite Houston defense. Lamar is out for a few weeks, so this offense could just really struggle for a while. If you can somehow ship him off for Jake Ferguson or Hunter Henry, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Okay, I hope you got something useful out of this Love 'em or Leave 'em Week 5 breakdown. I'll do one more sip of this Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Tart Cherry Wheat and make my conclusion. Okay, so I think this goes 11th on the big beer board right in front of the Samson 1795 Dark Lager. It grew on me a little bit as I drank it more, but I don't really love the bourbon-y taste in a wheat beer. Like if they could have done the cherry oak bourbon taste in a light stout, now that would have been fire. So final pour score for this bad boy is bourbon barrel cherry cough syrup for adults. All right, but that's going to do it for this episode of Tap Into Fantasy. If you liked what you heard, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the show find other degenerates like you. Hit me up on X at LG_fantasy or email at tapintofantasy@gmail.com with any start sit questions you have. Thanks for tapping in, and until next time, happy pours, happy scores.